Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Ashened Yugioh deck profile for post the 2025 Megatins. With the Megatins, we got a good number of reprints for the Ashened deck. This deck actually got support in the Duelist Advance booster set, but with the latest Megatin release, a lot easier to gather up all of the different cards needed for the Ashen deck, which is a deck that focuses on a playstyle to give your opponent a boss monster and then defeat it with your other Pyro Ashened monsters. So a very fun deck, definitely a fan favorite for the TCG exclusives just for the aesthetic art style of the deck altogether. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the main deck monsters. For the Ashen monsters, you do run 3 copies of Vidos, the Erupt Dragon of Extinction. This card was just reprinted in the Megatin. So with this card during the main phase, if this card's in your hand, quick effect, you can target one card in your field zone, special summon this card to your opponent's field, and if you do, destroy that card. You can add to your hand or set one Ashen continuous trap from your deck. If this card is sent from your opponent's field to your graveyard, you can destroy all monsters on the field. You can only teach the effect of Vidos once per turn, but it's set up in turn for destroying your field spell. You end up then getting a continuous trap, which then can also be used in tandem with your monsters, but then also being able to destroy all your monsters, kind of like the last words of the dragon on the field because of it. The other 3 of that we run include 3 copies of Priestess of the Ashen City. If Obsidian, the Ashen City, is in the field zone, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon Priestess of the Ashen City once per turn this way. And if it's normal or special summon, you can add one Ashen card from your deck to your hand, except for Priestess of the Ashen City. You can only use this effect of Priestess once per turn. But once again, it's search power, just being a great level 4 Pyro monster to be able to add off of this card also. And also the 2 copies of Spearhead of the Ashen City. If Obsidian of the Ashen City is in the field zone, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon Spearhead of the Ashen City once per turn this way. And if your opponent controls a monster with 2,800 or more attack, you can tribute this card to target one card your opponent controls and return it to the hand. So this is more or less going in response of Vidos being on your opponent's side of the field, which can then be bestowed to your opponent's field with the special summon of this card, being able to special summon this and then destroy that additional card as well. The additional 1-ofs for the deck include the 1 copy of Shaman of the Ashen City, the 1 King of the Ashen City, and the 1 Hero of the Ashen City. Since Alliance Insight, we've actually gotten more search support for the higher level monsters, and with the level 4 monsters, we obviously still have our go-to search in the form of Bonfire in the deck. But with each one of these 1-ofs, you have the special summon option if Obsidian, the Ashen City, is in your field zone, and then being able to have the special summon each one of these cards once per turn, being able to special summon an additional monster with King of the Ashen City, and then also the additional setup of cards like Shaman, being able to target 3 of your Pyro monsters that are banished in your graveyard, shuffle them back into the deck, recycle power, and then Hero of the Ashen City. You can target 1 Pyro monster on the field, destroy it, then you can, if you destroyed Vidos by a card effect, you can place 1 Obsidian, the Ashen City, face up in your field zone. So it's just meant to reset up again the entire events of what you did. So basically to then redo the campaign all over again. And then the rest of the main deck monsters, just 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joy Spring. We have a pretty tight lineup for what we want to run for the actual Ashen card, so that's why we're just sticking to the Ash Blossom and the Infinite Impermanence lineup for the hand traps. For these spells, before we get to the other spells, we'll go over the main one that we've talked about with all the other monsters, and that is Obsidian of the Ashen City. You do want to run 3 copies of this card. Sadly, out of all my Megatin pools, I was only able to pull 1 of this card, so I have 2 Metaverse spots as placeholders for this card. Face up special summon monsters your opponent control become Pyro during your turn only. You can only use each of the following effects of Obsidian once per turn. During your end phase, you can target 1 Obsidian, the Ashen City, in your graveyard, place it on the bottom of the deck, then draw 1 card. If this card in the field zone is destroyed or banished, you can special summon 1 Ashen monster from your deck. So this is meant to work with your Vidos after you destroy this card to special summon Vidos to your opponent's field, giving you your first Pyro monster to rise up to defend against the dragon as well. The new card from Duelist Advance is Inferno of the Ashen. When it's activated, you can place 1 Obsidian, the Ashen City, from your deck face up in either field zone. You can target 1 face up card your opponent controls and 1 level 8 or higher Dark Pyro in your graveyard. Send that card on the field to the graveyard and then special summon that monster from your graveyard to your opponent's field and defense. You can only use this effect of Inferno the Ashened once per turn. So this is basically meant to be an answer to take away from your opponent's monsters that may be on the field, in turn giving them a Vidos from your graveyard, and then be able to at least keep that added setup for that monster, but also being able to still have your field spell set up and ready to go against them also. We're also running 3 copies of Awakening of Vidos. This quick play spell, you place 1 Obsidian, the Ashen City, from your deck face up in either field zone. Then if your opponent controls a card in their field zone, you can add 1 level 5 or higher Dark Pyro monster from your deck to your hand. For the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, you cannot special summon from the deck or extra deck except for Pyro monsters, which really isn't a restriction with this deck, since the majority of the extra deck monsters that we do run are Pyro monsters. 3 copies also of Extinguish the Ashen. With this card, you send 1 Dark Pyro monster from your deck to the graveyard. Then you can add 1 level 5 or higher Pyro monster from your graveyard to your hand. For the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, you cannot special summon from the extra deck except for Pyro monsters. You can banish this card from your graveyard to fusion summon 1 Pyro fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field. And you can only use this effect of Extinguished of the Ashen once per turn. So this card just gives you more of that setup of even Vidos in the graveyard to be able to summon back with some of the other cards that we mentioned in the deck also. For the additional fusion play, since we have the 2 different fusion monsters to also be able to go into in the deck as well. And then the 1 copy of the quick play spell Rekindling of the Ashen. You place 1 of your Ashen cards that is banished in your graveyard on the bottom of the deck, or of your main deck, so remember that. Except Rekindling of the Ashen, then target an effect monster your opponent controls, negates effects till the end of this turn. You can only activate 1 of this card per turn, but more or less a effect negation card by also being able to recycle some of your other Ashen cards from the graveyard back into the deck. We're also running 3 copies of Chaotic Element. This card came out in Alliance Insight and has been a big help to the deck, being able to add a level 5 or higher monster, light or dark Pyro, from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So this is just search power, being able to search out those level 5 or higher dark Pyro monsters, which are a good majority of monsters that we run in the deck. So a definite 3-up for its search power. The 3 copies of Super Polymerization, just more, resources from our opponent to be able to use for our own fusion plays as well. And also, since we give our opponent those monsters, we can use them to make our own fusion monsters also. And then lastly, for the spells, the 1 copy of Bonfire and the 1 Terraforming to finish off the spell lineup with just more search power, whether it be for monsters or field spells. The 1 copy of Ashen for Eternity for the traps, and 1 copy of Ashen to Endlessness. They can both be searched off of Vidos. That's why we just need the 1 of copy counts. Being able to fusion summon with Ashen to the Endlessness. Being able to fusion summon a Pyro Fusion from your extra deck using monsters from either field as material, including Vidos, the Eruption Dragon of Extinction. And if you do, it gains 500 attack for each material used. You can banish this card and add 1 Dark Pyro monster from your graveyard. All monsters your opponent control currently pump Pyro to the end of this turn. So more resource use as well for those monsters to then be used for a fusion play. And Ashen for Eternity, when it's activated, you can add 1 Vidos, the Dragon of Extinction, or 1 Ashen monster from your graveyard to your hand. And you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls that you own, take control of that monster, giving you back basically your dragon for that play, and then make all your opponent's monsters with attack equal to the target monster's original attack also. And it lasts until the end of this turn for that summon. And then lastly, for the traps, 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, just the hand trap lineup that we mentioned before, along with Ash Blossom and Joy Spring. Wanted to keep the number small since we're running with a good majority of other cards that need to be used in the deck specifically. But for the extra deck, we're running 3 copies of the fusion spell Vidos, the Dragon of Endless Darkness, needing 1 Vidos and 2 or more level 9 or lower Pyro monsters, making your opponent's monsters Pyro all the better for this setup to then be able to use those monsters for this fusion summon with either your trap or super polymerization. It cannot be destroyed by card effects. Also, your opponent cannot target it with monster effects. If it's fusion summon, you can destroy all spell and traps your opponent controls. And when your opponent activates a card or effect on the field, quick effect, you can send 1 face-up Ashen card you control to the graveyard to destroy that card. You can only use this effect of Vidos once per turn, but the ultimate boss fusion monster using our original resources for the fusion play, and then additional spell and trap destruction of our opponent's cards when they activate a card on the field, to also send an Ashen card to destroy that card additionally. And also 3 copies of Embers of the Ashen, needing 2 Pyro monsters. If it's fusion summon, you can target a field spell in the graveyard, add it back to your hand, so you can add back our Ashened field spell. And then also, with this card, if it battles an opponent's Pyro monster, you can destroy that opponent's monster, and if it's your turn, this card can make a second attack in a row, being able to destroy that monster and then go for another swing, having just enough attack points to swing over the Vitos that may be on your opponent's field also. And then 1 Starving Venom just for the remainder of the fusion monsters, 1 Infernal Flame Vixen, and the 1 Infernal Flame Banshee added search power as well as the power boost for both of these monsters, just being Pyro monsters, which once again we can get restricted into summoning Pyro monsters, so just a good Xyz option to go into. 1 IP Masquerena, along with 1 SP Little Knight, the 1 Dark the Dark Charmer, the 1 Nightmare Phoenix, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, and the 1 Promethean Princess to finish off our Link monsters for the extra deck also. And then as for some of the go-to plays, as I said before, Inferno of the Ashened, our new spell, definitely does help with a good majority of the setup, because then we can place our Obsidian, the Ashen City, in our field spell zone with this card, having the added setup of each of these cards as well for the monsters becoming Pyro for our opponent's cards also. Then you can target a face-up card your opponent controls and 1 level 8 or Dark Pyro monster in your graveyard. If you have that resource already in your graveyard, you can activate Extinguishing the Ashen, sending the Dark Pyro monster from your deck to the graveyard, so you can send Vitos off of that play, and then have the monster set up in your graveyard as well for the special summon. So then you can go for the Inferno of the Ashen, sending your opponent's card to then special summon Vitos from your side of the field over to their side of the field for that summon, and then to that summon it goes in defense as well for that monster. And if you special summon the other monster from your graveyard to your opponent's field in defense, with this card setting you up then to be able to use your other Ashened monsters against your opponent's Vitos that you claimed against them, and also relying on your opponent's monsters being Pyro to go up against as well. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy. One of many decks that was just reprinted and making a more viable way to build from the 2025 Mega Tins. And I hope you all enjoyed. Look forward to other deck profiles from the Tins. But until then, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira, Twig out.